Okay, so going from question 9, examine the stage directions concerning the maniac on page 46. Why is he presented in this way at this point during the play? Why is it important and revealing that the police demonstrate such a lack of composure and emotional volatility during pages 45 and 6? So, here, at the end of their exchanges, the superintendent is exasperated because Pisani has accused him of being the nutter, and they've revealed all of their involvements in um, basically what sounds like a murder. And so here, they've temporarily adopted the maniac's role, and it's why he's silent in these lines. And Pisani says, "You pushed him, chum." Did I? That was a laugh, all right. All on my own, was I? And so here, there's this kind of comic sense of grotesque, or sorry, a combination of the comic and the grotesque in this supposed idea that this is a laugh, and they're talking about the death of someone innocent. But suddenly, all three realize at the same instant the maniac is listening. So there's this sense of them getting lost, losing track of the surroundings and getting lost. So immersed are they in the process of either fabricating a reason for this, or sort of blindly trying to cover this up. The maniac is listening. They freeze and slowly turn. The maniac has a beatific smile, this great sense of peace, as if he is at one with himself and at one with something. This great sense of not only sort of emotional happiness, but almost of spiritual fulfillment and completion. I think there's this sense here of something bigger, and perhaps of justice itself or the cause that he is trying to serve having been fulfilled. And so their frantic mania contrasts with this zen-like state that he finds himself in. And there's a pause and no one simply speaks, and then the phone shatters the silence. And this is an important moment in the play. It's a complete transferal from this private, intimate, sort of claustrophobic world of the maniac with the police, and a transfer from that public world that obviously has been captured by the maniac with the tape recorder to the private, to the public world of journalism and of the general public's involvement in this. And so we have this important piece of stagecraft here that signals that transfer, that we're moving here from a state of I guess private conflict to a much more public one that becomes a national concern. Question 10 is, why is it at this crucial moment we have the intrusion from the media and its potential exposure of the incident? So we think of why this is, what's at stake in this, and we have this sense of the moment of revelation privately being revealed, and then needing to work out the way that this would be handled in relation to the public at this important moment. And so Feletti, they describe the possibility of her arrival. And you can see from the initial way that they discuss her, they talk about her in very kind of castigating negative terms, that she's a bloody viper, because it's only in their eyes that she seems that way. But one thing that's interesting is that she doesn't necessarily have the maniac's sort of freedom from selfish concerns here. And by the purity of principle I've written, that's probably not the right phrase, because the maniac doesn't exactly operate on the line of principle. I mean, he's morally inflected in his action, but she is not free from the taint of self-interest in the proceedings of the remainder of the play, and so she is part of this malleable, multi-layered reality that we call truth, and her own search for a really good story is part of the selfishness that the police display. So on the other hand, the professor's quick thinking would be an invaluable asset, he says down here, and this responds to question 11, and the lines towards the bottom of 47, how many layers of deception are occurring in the police plot to shift the maniac's identity again? What does their eventual choice for the maniac reveal about their methods of centralized control? And how does the maniac's behavior on 48 reveal a further example of Brechtian theatricality? So question 11 here. Pisani first says the main thing is that we aren't compromised. And so what we're talking about is them transforming the maniac into a different role because they think he's the judge. So the idea that they aren't compromised is deeply ironic, because it is at this point that they are their most compromised. And he just then ironically says, I'll stay in the background, you tip me the wink if you want me to stick my oar in. And so he pretends here to be on their side. And they say, well, you are too kind, Your Honour. You see, one, Your Honour, and we're done for. And this is a great moment of dramatic irony in the play that contains so many layers of deception. Can't the professor pretend to be someone else? And so we've got this idea here of a pretense inside a pretense, and the dramatic irony is that they don't know that his own role as a judge or a magistrate is a performance. And then they're requiring him to put on another layer of pretense inside that already existing performance. And Pisani says, what? What a wonderful idea. Yes, I could be a psychiatrist from the criminal department. And so the theatricality that is very obvious here is that it's being used to fight theatricality. And there's a suggestion here that it's the only way of extracting or dealing with the truth. But the great irony involved here is that this is something that he's already exposed as one of his performances, a role as a psychiatrist. And the fact that they don't even recognize it necessarily is another exposure of their inadequacy. On 48, the Brechtian versions, the Brechtian conventions on 48, Pisani says to him, can you bluff your way in forensics? No problem. I'll need a disguise, of course, and I can't work without costume. And this seems to function almost as a kind of a motto for the play itself, a sort of dictum for the operations of identity in the play, that nobody seems to be able to work without this performative costume that shrouds actually their authentic identity. And so here they fail to notice his previous facade. So even though when he deliberately mentions costume, they still have absolutely no idea that he's been in one the whole time. And so further down the page, after they've decided to send up Ferletti, the maniac re-enters with his carrier bags, displaying his performativity to them once again. And then they say, you don't know how much we appreciate this, Your Honour. And he says, never let it be said I would abandon my friends in their hour of need. And there's obviously a great deal of sarcasm and irony here. And the superintendent's approbation for this and his warm reception of this and tells us that the maniac is a genius. And it shows us that what they value. And it's actually sort of ironically his own similarity to what he values, this sort of dynamic creativity that involves being a kind of protean shapeshifter that in the end gives us this sense of actually their growing connection, which becomes quite a major part of the interaction with Ferletti.